2 of For the Love of Gardening. I'm excited today because I get to show you a little bit how I potted my plants, the introduction of episode 1, how I started where I was, and for you guys, a little bit of the updates that happened. You won't believe how much is growing in this garden. It's small, manageable, but you always have to know how much energy you can put in and how much energy will come out. Sometimes more. Hello there, YouTube, and welcome to part 2 of For the Love of Gardening. Today, I'm actually renewing and resoiling my pots. We're starting with the green bay and then also with the big pot. I'm planning on doing broccoli, okra in this one. I have my lavender bush all propped up, so during the springtime and summertime, hopefully maybe something will happen. The big pot over here, I'm thinking about doing some tomatoes. Soon gonna experiment, and later in this episode I'll show you also about the herbs, setting those guys up. We'll set those up. These, I still need to get the seeds and kind of make sure that the soil is all set and ready. And like I tell everybody, always check your soil and give it love. Let's get to it. Sort of an easy process as it is. I would put a pile of the fresh Virgo dirt on top. I have already a layer or base. I go ahead and push it all so that it's kind of plateaued. I do watch out for the lavender plant. You'll see me kind of straighten her out just a little by little, making sure that those stems are not encased by dirt. The more they're out in the sun, the more they get to grow. Layering it through, you're going to go ahead and just quickly pat it down and just make sure it's nice and flat. You don't want to pat it down too hard or make it too tight. Now that we have the pot soiled out, I always kind of like to check, feel around for like little clumps like this. I like to always check my dirt. There's always plastic or nails that might be in your soil, so you always want to watch out for that kind of stuff. But I usually just kind of flatten out. I'll try to keep it at a rim or at least like a centimeter below, just so that I have some sort of clearance, just in case dirt were to get oversaturated. Once it gets oversaturated, it starts to overflow, leaving that centimeter kind of like maybe a fingertip of space allows it to have that access to overflow just a little bit more. I'm gonna have lavender, okra, and then I believe I'm gonna run broccoli over here if I need to get the broccoli seeds. So I'll show you about okra seeds as well. She's all planted up. I use little sticks from the garden to kind of hold up the lavender plant, give her a little bit of strength, and she just smells wonderful. Once the buds come in, then I'll be happy. I will say, it's definitely been an adventure with this pot. This came from Colorado when I first had my first garden, and I grew just regular herbs out of it, and it was transportable, whatnot. Potatoes. This is great for potatoes. These are just storage bins that you can buy anywhere, Walmart, whatever like this. This one was from the Container Store. The bottom one over here was from Container Store, the green one, and that one was about $70, but it's durable. It's like weatherproof and whatnot. This one is more of just a regular container for use for storage. I drilled about 4 to 6 holes underneath for drainage, and that's it. I didn't really put too much in there. I put some dirt, some leaves, maybe a little bit of like wood on the bottom, like wood chips. Other than that was about it. I had to spit it right. So the soil I'm going to be using, if you go to Starbucks, if you live in a country that has Starbucks, they always have coffee grains over there. And the coffee grains that they use, once they blend them up and use them, they put them in these bags that you can use for your garden, and they put them on a table. Anyway, that's what this soil is. I grabbed a little bit of the soil bag that I had from there, and I mixed in 2 espresso waste bags from Starbucks into here and made 2 parts, maybe I would say like a couple of like scoops of regular dirt, and made a nitrogen rich kind of soil, which still smells like espresso. In this pot over here, I'm actually gonna do kale and tomatoes next to each other, and also something else. But we're gonna try kale and tomatoes in this section. I'm gonna learn about structures, and basically this half is tomatoes and this half is kale. I don't want to grow too much kale because we're gonna have cilantro, arugula, broccoli, okra, a lot of greens. So the tomatoes, it's kind of going to be like a little bit of an experiment. So. To start the herb garden here, we're actually going to be putting cilantro in the first part here. For the cilantro, they're requiring at least 1/2 inch depth and at least 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch spacing. As you'll see, I'll be making my holes, and the formation I make is 3 holes going across as a row and 3 columns going down. Here I have the cilantro seeds. I'm going to be planting 1 in each hole. And so the first half is done. With the second half, you'll see a little bit more of a revised version. Check it out. And for the last step here, we're going to go ahead and top off the pot with the rest of the soil. As you'll see, I'm filling in the holes, not trying to collapse them or anything, just filling them in with some loose dirt. Once putting the loose dirt, just go ahead and flatten it out. For the arugula pot, we're going to go ahead and do 2 holes to start, with the spacing in between at least an inch or inch and a half. The depth of the hole is at least, I would say, a fingertip or at least half an inch. Continuing upward, we have about 8 to 16 plants ready to be seeded. As you can see, these are the arugula seeds. They're quite small. The package actually does recommend that you put 2 to 3 seeds in each hole. And just like the last pot, we're going to go ahead and top this off with some loose dirt, flatten it out, and create a nice little base. Now, of course, we can't forget the most important ingredient, water. I use a water bottle or Coke bottle. If you unscrew it just enough, it comes out as droplets. So instead of making little slits on the top or whatever like that, you can just use it like this, and it creates a controlled pour. Go ahead and just water them lightly. Well, lightly is a understatement, but give a good portion of water to each section. Just make sure that each seed, every hole is hydrated, and then other than that, you should be quite fine. Just let it sit and let it grow. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that little short of how everything started. It was a lot of hard work, but those containers have been with me for the past 3 years. I've been gardening for about 3-4 4 years now, and I've been using those pots just as like sort of like supplies, and then I eventually turned them into actually fully growing pots. Now, to show you the update, things have been growing. Check this out. We have our basil here, as I believe you've seen in episode 1. She's growing, but we got 2 bigger adults coming out right now. Let's see if we can get a little more. I have 2 big ones right here, and then the rest are kind of growing. With basil, it's kind of survival to the fittest. Sometimes they'll fall off and fall off and polish themselves as they're growing, and then you'll see in episode 1 I had a whole big bunch, and now it's decreased. But it's survival of the fittest. My red pepper plants, beautiful as always. Growing in a bunch, they're actually working pretty well together. So I'm quite excited to see what happens. And then of course, we have the heart. Now, I know that basil will survival of the fittest again, try to break off a lot, but this heart has actually been staying stable in its form. So I'm really excited about the next improvement of this, and to show you a little reference of how big these actually are. That's my thumb. That's the stem. They're about that high. So with that being said, I hope you guys like that basil. They're growing. There's 2 of them, and then there's a red pepper plants. Let me show you guys a little bit of my table plants. I didn't really show you guys 2 sisters that I have up on the table over here. They are actually a good portion of the garden. One was actually a mystery plant that I'm still trying to figure out what it is. I think it's a morning glory. Let's check it out. First of the table plants, this one is the mystery, as I said before. I don't know where it really came from. It was from an old pine plant, like all pine plant, and it was growing, and then this plant was growing next to it. I allowed it to grow, and it grew with it. Beautiful plant. Again, it's a vine, so I made a little structure for it. It's been abiding to it ever since I cut it. I'll show you a little bit of it as it progresses. And one of my few loves here, the aloe plant. I make a nice recipe with aloe, honey, lemon, and water, and it comes out just like soda. Anyway, I'm growing her from a baby and now eventually to a grown adult. As you'll see in this channel, as it progresses, she shall as well. Last but certainly not least of progression, the okra. Now, I had said I grew the okra in that little spot, and that little spot became 8 little plants. Cilantro is kicking in, and the arugula is growing a little bit tighter and a little bit bigger. And the lavender plant, well, she's a strong one. Really enjoy this series. I get to show everybody my garden, and hopefully you learn some tips. In the third episode coming up, I'll be showing you growing kale and tomatoes in this area over here. And then from there, hopefully tomatoes will kind of stay for a year. If not, how to manage it. See you soon. Stay classy. Stay amazing.